One of the clearest signs that you found the love of your life is something many people rarely talk about. It isn't butterflies. It isn't constant excitement. It isn't dramatic passion or endless emotional highs. Those things can be beautiful, but they are not the foundation of lasting love. The greatest sign is peace, because real love doesn't leave you constantly wondering where you stand. It doesn't make you spend sleepless nights analyzing text messages. It doesn't force you to question whether you're enough. It doesn't keep you trapped between hope and confusion. Instead, it gives your heart permission to rest. Think about how many people mistake emotional chaos for love. They believe that if a relationship is intense, it must be meaningful. If they constantly miss the other person, it must be destiny. If they feel anxious every day, it must mean they care deeply. But anxiety is not love. Confusion is not love. Emotional instability is not love. Those feelings often come from uncertainty, not connection. When someone truly loves you, they don't enjoy keeping you guessing. They don't disappear without explanation. They don't make affection feel like a reward you have to earn. They don't leave you wondering whether today they'll love you or ignore you. Instead, they create emotional safety. You know where you stand. You trust their words because they match your actions. You don't feel like you're competing for their attention. You don't feel like you're constantly proving your worth. And perhaps the most beautiful part is that you begin relaxing into the relationship instead of surviving inside it. Many people spend years believing that peace is boring. They become addicted to emotional ups and downs. The constant uncertainty feels exciting because it's unpredictable. One day there's affection, the next day there's distance. One day there are promises, the next day there's silence. And because the emotions are so intense, they mistake intensity for depth. But real depth doesn't create constant fear. It creates trust, because when you found the right person, your nervous system begins to feel safe. You don't panic every time they take longer to reply. You don't assume they're losing interest after one quiet day. You don't spend your time searching for hidden meanings behind every conversation. Why? Because consistency removes unnecessary fear, and consistency is one of the purest forms of love. Of course, no relationship is perfect. There will be disagreements. There will be misunderstandings. There will be difficult seasons. But even during those moments, respect remains. Communication remains. The desire to solve problems together remains. You never feel like you're fighting alone. You never feel like love is disappearing every time life becomes difficult. That's the difference between temporary attraction and lasting love. One is built on emotion alone, the other is built on emotional security. And here's something many people discover only after years of heartache. The love of your life won't make you feel perfect. They'll make you feel accepted. You won't have to perform. You won't have to pretend. You won't have to hide your fears or constantly wear a mask just to keep them interested. You'll feel seen. You'll feel heard. You'll feel respected. And those feelings create something that excitement alone never can. They create peace. Because at the end of the day, the right relationship doesn't constantly test your heart. It protects it. And when someone's love consistently brings you peace instead of confusion, you've found something far more valuable than temporary passion. You've found a love that truly feels like home. One of the most beautiful signs that you've found the love of your life is that you no longer have to depend on beautiful words to feel secure. Words can be inspiring. They can make your heart race. They can create unforgettable moments. But words alone have never been enough to build a lasting relationship, because anyone can say, "I love you." Anyone can promise forever. Anyone can talk about the future. The real question is this: what happens after the conversation ends? Because love isn't measured by what someone says when emotions are high. It's measured by what they consistently choose when life becomes ordinary. Many people fall in love with promises instead of patterns. They remember the sweet messages, the late-night conversations, the plans that were made, the dreams that were shared. And because those memories feel so powerful, they keep holding on, even when the present tells a different story. But here's something that changes everything. Real love doesn't ask you to ignore reality in order to believe in the relationship. Real love makes reality feel safe. When someone truly loves you, their actions begin speaking before their words ever do. They show up when they say they will. They remember the little things that matter to you. They check on you, not because they have to, but because they genuinely care. They make time for you even when life becomes busy. Not because they have unlimited hours, but because you are one of their priorities. That's the difference between attraction and commitment. Attraction enjoys the moment, commitment builds a future. Think about how many relationships survive on beautiful speeches while slowly falling apart through neglected actions. Someone says they miss you but never makes time to see you. They promise change but repeat the same behavior. They say you're important, yet you constantly feel like an option. Eventually, you begin living on hope instead of evidence. You become grateful for words because actions have become so rare. But the love of your life will never force you to choose between what you hear and what you experience. Their words and actions begin telling the same story. When they say they'll call, they call. When they promise support, they stay. When they say they're committed, their daily choices reflect that commitment. Not perfectly, because no human being is perfect. There will be forgotten moments, fussy days, misunderstandings, mistakes. But the overall pattern remains dependable. And that's what creates trust. Trust isn't built by hearing "I love you" 100 times. It's built by watching someone prove it in ordinary moments. It's built through reliability, through honesty, through consistency. Perhaps one of the greatest gifts of genuine love is that it removes the constant need for reassurance. You don't have to keep asking whether they still care. You don't have to wonder if they've changed their mind. You don't have to earn affection through endless sacrifice. Their behavior quietly answers the questions your heart used to ask. And that kind of love brings a deep sense of security, not because the relationship is perfect, but because the effort is real. Remember this: flowers fade, most disappear. Romantic speeches are eventually forgotten. But consistent actions leave lasting memories. The person who is meant for you won't simply tell you that you matter. They'll make you feel it through the way they treat you every single day. Because when someone's actions consistently match their words, you no longer have to search for proof of their love. You simply get to experience it. And that is how real love quietly turns promises into a lifetime of trust. One of the most beautiful signs that you've found the love of your life is that you begin becoming more of yourself, not less. That may sound simple, but it's one of the rarest qualities of a truly healthy relationship. Because many people enter love believing they must change who they are in order to be accepted. They begin hiding parts of themselves. They stop chasing dreams. They become quieter, smaller, and more afraid of making mistakes, all because they're trying not to lose the person they love. But real love doesn't require you to disappear. It gives you permission to fully exist. Think about how many people slowly lose their identity inside unhealthy relationships. They stop spending time with friends. They abandon hobbies they once enjoyed. They give up personal goals. They become afraid to express different opinions. Every decision begins revolving around keeping the other person happy. And little by little, they wake up one day realizing they no longer recognize the person staring back at them in the mirror. That's not love. That's fear wearing the mask of love, because fear says, if I become exactly what they want, maybe they'll stay. Love says, I admire who you already are, and I want to help you become even more. The love of your life doesn't compete with your purpose. They encourage it. They don't become threatened by your success. They celebrate it. They don't make you feel guilty for growing. They cheer for your growth because they understand that your happiness strengthens the relationship instead of weakening it. And perhaps that's one of the clearest differences between control and love. Control limits. Love expands. Control asks you to shrink. Love invites you to rise. When you're with the right person, you begin discovering strengths you didn't know you had. You become more confident because you're supported instead of criticized. You become more courageous because someone believes in you. You become more authentic because you no longer feel the need to pretend. You laugh more freely. You speak more honestly. You dream more boldly, not because they complete you, but because they create an environment where the best parts of you naturally come alive. Of course, healthy love still challenges you. It encourages growth. It points out blind spots with kindness. It inspires maturity. But there's a huge difference between someone helping you become better and someone making you feel like you're never enough. The right person doesn't constantly remind you of your flaws. They remind you of your potential. They don't demand perfection. They encourage progress. And that's why you feel safe enough to keep growing, One of the greatest gifts of genuine love is emotional freedom. You don't have to wear a mask. You don't have to constantly prove your value. You don't have to hide your personality to avoid rejection. You know you're accepted even while you're still growing. That kind of acceptance creates confidence instead of insecurity. It creates peace instead of pressure. It creates inspiration instead of fear. Remember this, the love of your life will never ask you to sacrifice your identity just to preserve the relationship. Instead, they'll help you discover parts of yourself that were waiting to be seen all along. Because real love doesn't make your world smaller. It makes your life richer, your spirit stronger, and your future brighter. And when someone helps you become the fullest version of yourself, without ever asking you to stop being who you are, you've found a love that truly helps your soul grow. One of the greatest tests of love is not how someone treats you when everything is perfect. It's how they treat you when life becomes difficult. Because almost anyone can be loving when the days are easy, when the money is flowing, when the smiles come naturally, and when there are no disagreements to overcome. But real love reveals its strength when comfort disappears and challenges arrive. That is when character begins to speak louder than emotion. Every relationship will face storms. There will be stressful seasons. There will be misunderstandings. There will be moments when both of you feel tired, frustrated, or overwhelmed by life. No relationship escapes those moments. The question is never whether difficulties will come. The question is what happens when they do. Many people mistake temporary passion for lifelong love because they've only seen each other in good times. But love isn't proven on vacation. It isn't proven during romantic dinners. It isn't proven when everything is exciting. It's proven in hospital rooms, in financial struggles, in family problems, in moments of disappointment, in ordinary days when life feels heavy. Because when you've found the love of your life, they don't disappear the moment life becomes inconvenient. They don't emotionally shut down every time there's conflict. They don't make you feel like you're facing every battle alone. Instead, they stay, not because everything feels easy, but because you matter more than the discomfort. That doesn't mean they always know the right words. It doesn't mean they never become frustrated. It doesn't mean they never need space to think. They're human, just like you. But even during difficult moments, they remain committed to finding a solution instead of looking for an escape. And that's a powerful difference. Many relationships don't end because of one big problem. They end because one person keeps walking away every time something becomes uncomfortable. Every disagreement becomes a threat. Every challenge becomes a reason to leave. Every difficult conversation becomes something to avoid. Over time, trust begins to disappear because you never feel secure. You're constantly wondering whether this argument will be the one that ends everything. But the right person doesn't make you feel like love has an expiration date every time life gets hard. They remind you that you're on the same team. Instead of asking, who's right? They begin asking, how do we make this better together? That small shift changes everything, because healthy love doesn't create opponents. It creates partners. And perhaps one of the most comforting feelings in the world is knowing that someone is willing to face life's hardest moments without letting go of your hand. You begin facing challenges with courage instead of fear, because you know you're not carrying the burden alone. That kind of support creates emotional security. It builds trust that cannot be created through romantic words alone. Remember this. Anyone can promise forever during beautiful moments, but forever is built through ordinary choices made during difficult days. It's built by showing up, listening, forgiving, communicating, choosing the relationship even when emotions are running high, because lasting love is not the absence of problems. It's the presence of two people who refuse to let problems become more important than each other. And when someone consistently stays beside you through life's storms, instead of searching for the nearest exit, you've found a love that is built not just on feelings, but on unwavering commitment. And that is the kind of love that grows stronger with every challenge it survives. One of the clearest signs that you've found the love of your life is something that many people never experience until much later. You stop feeling like you have to earn their love. You stop believing that one wrong word will make them leave. You stop living with the constant fear that you have to be perfect just to remain worthy of being loved. Because genuine love is not a prize that must be won every single day. It's a commitment that is nurtured every single day. Many people grow up believing that love is conditional. If I always say the right thing, they'll stay. If I never make mistakes, they'll love me. If I become everything they want, I won't lose them. And because of those beliefs, they enter relationships carrying invisible pressure. They apologize for things that don't require apologies. They hide their true opinions. They suppress their emotions. They become afraid to express disappointment. Not because they're dishonest, but because they're terrified that being authentic will cost them the relationship. That isn't love. That's survival. Real love doesn't make you walk on eggshells. It doesn't make you rehearse every conversation before speaking. It doesn't leave you wondering whether today's mistake will erase years of loyalty. Instead, it creates emotional security. You know you're accepted even on your difficult days. You know one disagreement won't suddenly destroy everything you've built together. You know that being human doesn't make you less lovable. Of course, this doesn't mean healthy love accepts disrespect or harmful behavior. Every relationship needs accountability. Every relationship requires growth. Both people should continue learning, improving, and taking responsibility for their actions. But there's an enormous difference between growing together and constantly proving your worth. The love of your life won't expect you to perform for affection. They won't give love only when you're perfect. They won't use distance as punishment every time you disappoint them. Instead, they'll choose communication over silent treatment, understanding over assumptions, grace over unnecessary judgment. Think about how peaceful that feels. You no longer wake up wondering whether they're losing interest. You don't spend hours searching for hidden meanings behind every text message. You don't feel like you're competing with everyone else for their attention. You simply know that you're valued, not because they constantly repeat it, but because they consistently show it. And perhaps that's one of the greatest gifts of mature love. It removes unnecessary fear. Fear consumes emotional energy. When you're always worried about being abandoned, you stop enjoying the relationship. You become focused on preventing loss instead of building connection. But security allows love to breathe. It allows honesty. It allows vulnerability. It allows both people to admit mistakes without believing the relationship is falling apart, because they trust that love is stronger than one imperfect moment. Remember this. The right person won't expect you to become someone else just to deserve their affection. They'll appreciate your strengths. They'll accept your imperfections. They'll encourage your growth without making you feel like you're constantly failing. And that changes everything, because when you no longer feel pressured to earn love, you're finally free to give love with an open heart instead of a fearful one. You stop loving from anxiety. You start loving from confidence. You stop trying to prove that you're enough. You begin living with the quiet certainty that you already are. And that is one of the strongest signs that you've found a love built on trust, acceptance, and genuine commitment rather than fear. And now we come to the deepest sign of all, the one that ties every other lesson together. Because after the peace, the consistency, the support, and the trust, there is one final question that reveals whether someone is truly the love of your life. Who are you becoming because of this relationship? Many people believe the love of their life should become the center of their world. They believe true love means thinking about one person every moment of every day. They imagine that happiness comes from losing themselves completely in another human being. But that's not what lasting love looks like. Real love doesn't erase your identity, it protects it. It doesn't ask you to abandon your dreams. It encourages them. It doesn't replace your purpose. It walks beside your purpose. Because healthy love is not built on dependency. It's built on partnership. Think about two strong trees growing side by side. Their roots are separate, yet they both reach toward the same sky. Neither tree steals the other's strength. Neither prevents the other from growing. Instead, they stand together through sunshine and storms, each becoming stronger while remaining fully themselves. That's what genuine love feels like. You don't become less independent. You become more confident. You don't stop pursuing your goals. You pursue them knowing someone believes in you. You don't lose your friendships, your passions, or your individuality. You carry them into a relationship where they are respected instead of threatened. And perhaps that's one of the rarest gifts another person can give you. The freedom to be completely yourself without fearing rejection. When you've found the love of your life, you no longer feel trapped between choosing yourself and choosing the relationship. You can do both, because the right person understands that your happiness is not their competition. Your success is not their insecurity. Your growth is not a threat to the love you share. Instead, they celebrate every step forward. When you succeed, they smile with genuine pride. When you struggle, they remind you of your strength. When you doubt yourself, they don't create more fear. They become a voice of encouragement. And over time, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop asking, will this person complete me? You begin realizing that you were always complete. Love simply gave you a safe place to express that wholeness. That's an important distinction. No one can permanently fill every empty place inside another person. If your entire identity depends on someone else's presence, fear will eventually replace freedom. Every disagreement will feel like the end. Every moment of distance will create panic. Every challenge will threaten your sense of self. But when two emotionally healthy people choose each other, love becomes something entirely different. It becomes a source of peace instead of pressure, a source of encouragement instead of control, a source of joy instead of emotional dependence. You love because you want to share your life, not because you're trying to escape loneliness. And that changes everything. Remember this, the love of your life will never ask you to become smaller so they can feel bigger. They'll never expect you to sacrifice your identity just to preserve the relationship. Instead, they'll inspire you to become wiser, kinder, stronger, and more authentic with every passing year. Because the greatest relationships are not built between two people who lose themselves in love. They're built between two people who know who they are, choose each other freely, and continue growing side by side without ever losing themselves along the way. And when love gives you both deep connection and complete freedom to remain true to yourself, you've found something truly rare that is worth protecting for a lifetime.